Okay, we're looking at the enmity between the seeds and the separation of the lineages. In the last podcast, I spoke about the covenant with Abraham, the chosen lineage through Isaac and Jacob, and the importance of identity. Now I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the spiritual battle. That began, of course, in Genesis 3:15, a battle between two seeds. When the Most High said to the serpent, I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. I really don't think it wasn't speaking just about Eve. He was revealing a spiritual truth that I believe shapes the entire narrative of Scripture. The enmity is not about gender, it's about lineage and purpose. The seed, I believe, represents a continuation of God's covenant and, of course, a rebellion against it. So let's clarify what this actually means and try and dismantle some of the myths and misconceptions surrounding this verse. I've heard all sorts of stuff. I'm trying to stay on task and not drift away, because if I do, I'll go way over. Now, let me address a common misconception straight away, because many people will have heard this one as well. Some people claim that Eve had a physical relationship with the serpent. That's not in the Scriptures. Eve's sin was disobedience, not infidelity. Let's get this right, get this for real. Genesis 3:6, the text clearly states, and when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat. The serpent, as we know, deceived Eve. We know about that. But there is no indication in the Bible that any physical act took place. So people are leaning onto their own understanding, of course. It's not there. The false teaching distorts the true meaning of the enmity between the seeds. I want to also mention, by the way, that when she ate the fruit, her husband Adam was right next to her. I'm not going to go off course, because if I do, I'll go longer. Hosea 6:7, I believe, explains that says, I think the Most High says, you, Adam, you betrayed me. So let's make sure that is really clear. You see, the spiritual meaning of enmity is interesting, because it says, I'll repeat it again, I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Now, the serpent's seed represents rebellion and opposition to God's covenant. And this isn't limited to physical descendants. I don't think so anyway. But it includes all who align themselves with sin and, of course, disobedience. The woman's seed represents the righteous lineage that carries the covenant. This is what I believe. The lineage begins, of course, with Adam and Eve. And this continues through Noah and ultimately to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The enmity, I believe, is spiritual. A battle between those who follow the Most High, and then you've got those who rebel against the Most High. You see, if we start to lean under our own understanding, we will not understand the spiritual, and this is what is fooling people. It's important to read the word in the spirit, and to understand that this is not about gender superiority as the men seem to think. The seed includes, by the way, male and female, not just males. So that's pretty obvious, because both are essential in carrying out the Most High's plan. You see, throughout Scripture, we see examples of women who played critical roles in God's covenant. Deborah, in Judges 4, led Israel as a prophetess and a judge, showing that women were instrumental in God's victories. And also, there's another lady called Jael, Jael, I believe, who actually recognized the leader of the Canaanites who ran away and left his men to die. Well, she recognized him, and guess what? She killed him. So another brave woman in the same story. We've also got Esther, who risked her life to save her people from destruction. Again, demonstrating courage and faith in the face of adversity. Don't forget what she said, if I perish, I perish. She was willing to die for her people. Then we got Ruth. She was a Gentile, but I thought it was quite important to mention this because she cleaved to Israel. That's why these stories are in the Bible, for us to understand and hopefully be saved. So she cleaved to Israel and became part of the covenant lineage through her obedience and faithfulness and humbleness. You see, these women should remind us that the seed represent both male and female, united in righteousness, but the Most High, He does not favour one over the other. He uses both to fulfil His purpose. So let's look at the separation of the seeds, shall we? Because this is where people are going wrong. It began in Genesis, but continues throughout the whole Bible. We have Cain and Abel, the first example of enmity between the seeds, which occurred with Cain murdering his brother Abel. You see, Cain here represents rebellion, and he killed Abel, but he was righteous in the eyes of the Most High. The covenant is passed through Isaac, not Ishmael. Isaac's son Jacob continues the covenant, while Esau, who is Edom, becomes a symbol of rebellion and opposition. You see, Edom's hostility towards Israel was evil. And we've got to remember that Esau's descendants, the Edomites, they were, should I say, probably still is now, a constant adversary to the 12 tribes of Israel. The enmity is spiritual, I believe, rooted in the rebellion symbolized by the serpent's head. So what does this mean for us today then? The spiritual battle described in Genesis 3:15 is still unfolding, and the Most High continues to separate the righteous from the rebellious. The righteous seed aligns with God's commandments and His covenant. The rebellious seed, opposes His plan, whether through disobedience, deceit, or outright hostility towards the chosen people. And we get that all the time today. So as I reflect on this, remember that this is not a physical lineage alone. It's about spiritual alignment. And the question isn't just who your ancestors were, it's about where your heart is. You see, Genesis 3:15 is not just a curse on the serpent. It is a prophecy of the ongoing spiritual battle between the seeds. The battle is not about a gender, nor is it about blaming Eve, as most men like to say. But they forget the covenant was with Adam. Get over it. Once you understand the separation of those who align with the Most High from those who actually rebel against him, and of course his people, everything starts to make sense. In the next podcast, I'm going to discuss the role of the Gentiles. I know many will be waiting for this. Their responsibility to cleave to Israel and how they can align themselves with the righteous seed. But for now, I want you to reflect on this. Are you walking in alignment with the Most High? Have you looked at the commandments, the statutes, the laws today? Is it Leviticus? Stay blessed. Next one coming up.